Testing.
That's loud. That's loud. Oh. Hey, Clark. How are you, dear?
Should have a meeting starting soon. So you're running. Push the button in. Yeah, everybody muted right now. Would you mind if I ask you one more time? Just to this chair. If you would. No, you can slide down. No, because I believe you're kind of.
You're on the spot. Your computer going to stay there.
Tom, check your mic.
You're an IT guy. That's your phone. Okay, like here?
Yeah, probably better. Thank you.
Dwight, you fixed his mic?
Yeah,
Good afternoon, everyone, and greetings. We're calling to order the special meeting of the Village Council Thursday, May 6, 2021. We'll have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Birch.
Present.
Councilmember St. Fleur. Councilmember Wagler.
Present.
Vice Mayor Marenberg.
Present.
Mayor Harris.
Present.
You have quorum.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. We will open the public comments. If you sent in e-comments, they will be read. Do we have any e-comments, Madam?
Have one e-comment from Wesley Castellanos.
Okay, you're gonna read it, you're gonna place it in?
Yes.
Okay. Everyone else, please state your name and address, and please limit it to 3 minutes of less.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Robert Menji, and I live at 1102 Northeast 105 Street. It's a pleasure to see you all tonight, and also to see Tom, after so much dedication to the government, taking a break, going fishing, hanging out with his family, and enjoying parts of his life that he probably never wanted to do before because he's so dedicated to taking care of our community. I will sorely miss him, and so will the rest of the residents of our community. I've worked for the county myself for many years, and you really can never leave. Once you care about your community, you're always going to take care of it. There's no question about that. And the other thing that's really sad, he's an excellent administrator. His staff is very responsive. I've lived in Miami-Dade County all my life, and I've seen all kinds of administrators that come and go. He stayed, and he taught his administration how to deal with the community. And the response that the local staff has is incredible. I lived in Coconut Grove, City Miami, Hialeah, North Miami, Miami Beach, and there is nothing like Miami Shores. We are totally different, considering our location and their location, and it's been a pleasure working with him and their staff, in addition to the leaders of our community. I hope you understand what a loss we have, but at the same time that the staff that he has left behind understands what it is to serve the community. And I hate to see him there, but it's time to go fishing.
Welcome. I want to quickly just stay really quickly. Mr. Benton, thank you so much for your dedication and hard work. My father worked for a company for 50 years, longer than I've even lived, and he actually cried the day he left. So I know it's really emotional. So thank you for your effort and work. For the council, if I want to just say is basically, take your time. I know you have an emergency meeting to make this selection, but to find somebody to fulfill a spot for that has somebody has worked for 50 years, it's very difficult. So please understand that I understand that you're trying to have this meeting. We really thank you for it, but at the same time, I wanted to kind of recommend somebody who works within the building department or within the building who has worked closely with Mr. Benton. This gentleman behind me, Mr. Kendall, I've worked with him. As you guys may know, I'm an architect, I'm a contractor, so I work very closely within the city, within the village, so I know a lot of ins and outs. So if you can, kindly look at resumes, study what you have, and I know you're going to make the best selection, but we thank you all for your dedication and hard work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Finkelstein, 565 Grand Concourse, Miami Shores. Just to say, I've been in the Shores for 40 years. My wife and I got married in our backyard. To say our children grew up here, and we really, really love the Shores. We've been active in the village. I'm a general contractor, retired, spent many a day speaking with Tom. I just want to say thank you for your dedication, for your hard work, and for your fairness. To leave now, when our library, who my wife was the president, trustee at the library, is in that throes of a big remodel, we're going to miss you. And I hope and I pray that you have a great life and do all the wonderful things you want to do, and invite me to go fishing with you. So thank you, Tom, very much.
Any other comments? I would like to
Madam
make
Mayor,
a comment.
somebody just messaged that the sound is not working online, or they're having a sound issue on the broadcast, if we could just double check it.
And Mr. Manager, I also want to say that I've received several phone calls with people telling me different things that they've experienced with you, very positive comments in support of your life's work here. And I want to say on behalf of the community and all the previous councils before us and this council, thank you for your life's work here. I might want to say you're the longest village manager who's ever been here, but I don't know if that's a fact, but you've been here many years. No, it's not. Oh, McCall, that's what his name after oh, okay. All right. And so this is a weird task, but I just want you to know that we recognize and we appreciate you, and we recognize the task at hand, that this is a big task for this board. And again, like you've led this new council, you've been leading us and acclimating us to our new roles. Again, we call on you to lead us in this process here too, and we appreciate you very much. Okay. Madam Clerk.
Item 5A, discussion and possible action regarding the process of appointing a new village manager.
Okay, can we start that with Mr. Benton telling us some background and...
Madam Mayor, and members of council, so obviously the task ahead, we have, I think the first thing you all need to do is decide on an interim manager of who what you're going to do in the short term. Testing, got me now? Okay, got it? All right,
Can we
what you're
take
going to
that
do in the
item
short
first?
term
Sorry,
there you go, yeah.
sorry.
So again, I know that someone has suggested that Mr. Kendall, who is our Planning and Zoning Director, I had a conversation with him earlier today. He expressed that if it was the council's desire, he would be willing to step in if you all wanted to, under certain conditions, obviously, that, you know, he enjoys his current job, and I don't think that he wants assurances that, you know, if you all weren't satisfied in his role as manager, that he could go back to his old job unscathed, so to speak. So there's that aspect. There are managers that I think some of us here know that may be in transition that we could perhaps reach out to. And ultimately also, the ICMA, the International City Managers Association, has a range rider program where you could reach out to them. They would appoint somebody or come up with a list of people that you could interview, and they would come in and sort of hold the reins while you found somebody permanently. So I guess that's the first thing that the council needs to look at. And then after that, obviously, or while that's happening, you need to find somebody permanently. There's obviously other ways to find someone permanently. This afternoon, I sent you a proposal from a recruiting expert that has been around for many years, that's hired many city managers, Colin Benzinger and Associates. That's one aspect that you can, avenue you can go down. There's also the avenue of having your clerk advertise, accept applications, and I have talked to the current president of the Dade County City Managers Association. They are willing to set up a committee of professional managers to take your applications that you receive, vet them out, pare them down, and bring you the top 3 or 5 that they, whatever your preference is, or 10, or however many you want, that they believe are qualified to do the job. And then you could then interview them yourselves and then pick from that list. So there's several things you all need to talk about tonight. Those are just some of the options that you have before you. So with that, I'll shut up and let you all discuss it.
I have one question for you. Is Mr. Kendall interested in applying for this job
I don't think
or
so.
serving in the interim?
Well, I'll let him speak for himself. He's
Thank
here
you,
tonight.
sir. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Travis Kendall. No, for me, the role is a transition to help you all get from A to B and get to the vision point where you want and really vet it and have the time and not feel rushed. It's more of willingness to do this to sort of get from this point to that point with as little issue as possible. So yes, no, that's not my intent at all.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Okay. Anyone on the council would like to start the discussion?
Madam Mayor, is it best to go through that list of choices and decide about the interim first?
Yes,
And then-
definitely.
And then move on to the other broader choices as we move.
I agree.
So in terms of an interim, I understand now that, can you hear me?
Better, yeah.
All right, so it'd be better if to swallow the microphone. What I'd like to say is that I'm grateful to Mr. Kendall for being willing to do this. I'm wondering if his former boss is going to be willing to help him as we go along. So, because we understand that the process might take up to 6 months to fully vet out someone new, it would be important to know that someone had the reins and an advisor throughout that 6-month period.
Yeah.
That's important to me. I mean,
I
I'm
agree.
speaking for myself.
And the charter gives you the right to make a recommendation. Are you recommending Mr. Kendall for the board for consideration?
Well, what the charter says is to appoint an acting manager, I guess, when I'm on vacation and things like
that's
that.
it? Okay.
This is your decision and your call
Okay.
right now.
So
You know, as far as helping Mr. Kendall, I mean, certainly I would be available if he had, a situation needed to have wanted to call me, had a question or something like that. But as far as, coming into the office and sitting in the office or something,
We can't get any free work out of you?
I plan on being offshore a lot.
Yeah. I like the fact that Mr. Kendall is not interested in the job. I really like that. And if anyone else have anything they want to say? Okay, do we have, may I make a motion to Is that the proper process, to make a motion for Mr. Kendall to be the interim? Because nobody said they had anything to say.
Oh, well, I don't know if this is working. Tap.
Go ahead, Councilperson St. Clair.
Can you guys, is that good? Yeah. Okay. Is this better?
Just go ahead, we'll figure it out.
We can hear you.
But you're not. Can you guys hear me now? I feel like I can hear it now. All right. I think we're good now, right? Okay. So I think I was being a little shy, waiting for people to ask questions, but here they are. In terms of an interim manager, I just want to be clear, we have 30 days from the time you gave us your letter. Your last day will be June 1st. The manager's last day is June 1st. We are now May 6th. So we would have an interim serve for the period of time, just to clarify, we would have an interim serve for the period of time from then till we hire someone, because Mr. Travis has indicated that he's not interested.
Right.
Correct? And if we chose not to go with Mr. Travis and we wanted to bring in someone fresh, someone who doesn't have any prior relationships, that can implement some of the new things or some of the new ideas or implement some of the new transparencies, just so that someone doesn't have any existing feelings or relationships, just a fresh start, how long will that process take for us to find an interim? If it is not Mr. Travis?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
I understand what you're asking, but I think perhaps we need to look at, Mr. Benton has provided different avenues for looking at interim managers. I think there might be some good in having a discussion as to, do we want to advertise? Do we want to go through the Dade County City Managers Association? There's a firm that's been suggested, and by the way, while I ask that question, Mr. Benton, on the firm that you suggested, is there a cost associated with that?
Yes, ma'am.
What is that?
$28,500 to take you
Okay.
through the process.
Okay, so thank you. I think we need to come up with a plan as to how we're going to move forward, and that $28,000,
Well,
I
that
don't know
sound-
that I'm comfortable with that, speaking for
Especially for
myself.
interim.
So,
But-
Mr.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So sorry. So I guess my question is, it's Miami-Dade County City Managers Association?
Yes, ma'am.
They would vet, so when you said they would vet applicants, they're going to vet applicants for the interim, or they're going to vet applicants for city manager?
For the permanent position.
For the permanent position?
Yes, ma'am.
And the ICMYA would be able to help with the permanent or with the interim?
The interim. They have what they call a range rider program. I have not contacted them about that because I don't know what the pleasure of the council was, but obviously I could do that in the morning if that's where you all wanted to go, to see how fast they could have somebody here and in place.
Madam Mayor?
And perhaps,
Yes,
if I
Mayor.
may, maybe, Mr. Kendall could hold the reins for, a couple of weeks till they got a range rider here, if that's what you all wanted to do, so that, you're covered.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So, Mr. Benton, I think it would be helpful for me to understand what the transition process was the last time we did this. And I know it's been some time, but when the last council was putting you in place, did they reach out to any other organizations? Did they advertise? I like to look at kind of what past practices have been, just to understand what's been done in the past, especially within our village, because that might be useful.
The last time the council, we had a similar meeting like this, and I was sitting where Mr. Kendall was, and the council reached out and asked me if I would do it, and I said yes. I started off as the interim. I think I was in that spot, 5-6 months, and then the council said, look, we want to take the interim off and make you the manager. Okay, and the rest was history. 23 years later, and here we are. But That's how that unfolded. And if you look at the material that I believe the clerk provided you from ICMA, I mean, that's kind of how a lot of organizations do. They reach down into a department director and,
Exactly.
pull up from there. So that was my experience, and that's what happened. Prior to that, we had gone the route of the individual before me. We went the clerk route where they advertised. There was a committee of lay people, and I don't recommend that because it didn't go very well. So that's why if we want to save the money of the recruiter, we can certainly advertise ourselves here. And if the Managers Association, like I said, is willing to put together a committee of, sitting professional managers, they've done this for North Bay Village recently, they did it for Biscayne Park, they've done it for other cities over the years, and, they will go through the applications. You will get all kinds of applications. You'll get people that are just trying to take a shot, so to speak, that, hoping that, they may work in a department director in a small town and they want to move up and put in their application. And so those are the kinds of things that as council, you don't want to be sitting through that. Weed them out and then bring to you real candidates that are.
So you started to answer already my second question, which is which jurisdictions in Miami-Dade County or Broward for that matter, but who's gone through a recent process of transitioning their village or city manager that we might be able to reach out to or speak to? Either they've done it internally themselves or they've reached out to these organizations that you've noted for us. But if there's any organization and jurisdictions that in recent times have also transitioned, I think that'd be useful information for the council.
Okay, I mean, off the top of my head, like I said, I know that Biscayne Park has a fairly new manager. North Bay Village, I think Ralph's been there going 2 years now.
Key Biscayne.
Miami Beach just named a new manager. Key Biscayne just named a new manager. So I'd have to do some more digging, but off the top of my head, those are cities
And all of
that
them might have short lists that, all those cities you just mentioned.
possibly.
The clerk gave you all a listing. One of the categories here is how long the occupant has been in the job, so just look for low numbers, and that might be a good place to start.
So let's talk about the temporary manager.
Madam Mayor, before we go there, I just have one more question, if I may. So, Mr. Benton, what would you, in your, having been in this role for 23 years, what would you think are some of the important qualifications to look for when it comes to a village manager?
Crazy? No, I'm kidding.
Number one's crazy. Got it. Got it.
No, obviously, you need good budgeting skills. You need good communication skills. You need to be able to talk to people. You need to be able to respond to people. You need, in this day and age, you need someone with good computer skills to, manage through social media and things like that. So I think those are the big qualities that you have, that you need.
And does prior city management, is that important, or you think not necessarily important? How much does prior experience as a village or city manager weigh, in your opinion?
I think it's important. However, if there was someone that managed, let's say there was somebody that managed the Department of Public Works and Transportation for Miami-Dade County, let's say. Huge department, big budget, something like that. And perhaps somebody like that wanted to move into the manager role. Something like that could be, that may be a good fit for somebody. Another thing that you may want to look at as far as qualities as well is we have a lot of projects coming up here in terms of drainage, sewers, potential construction. And, I came from a public works background, so I know quite a bit about those types of things. And so it made my job a lot easier in order to, to be able to navigate through some of those things. So that may be something that you may want to look at somebody that's got more of a public works slash, building type of a background with all the things that we're going to be looking at in the future with sea level rise, drainage, and all the other things that we have before us as a community.
That's good. Having been an interim city manager for 9 whole months, I concur with your comments about being special. And in that process, this is for the Village of El Portal. I don't know, is this on? There we go. And in that process, I know there was a vacancy coming up, and it was in short order. And that, I'm just using that as an anecdote. And in that process, the clerk put out an advertisement, and people applied, and there must have been, by memory serves, 10 to 15 applicants. And those applications were reviewed by their counsel at the time. At the next meeting after those applications were reviewed, those applicants came to the meeting, made their pitch, and it was narrowed down. Now, it is a process, right? It took 2 meetings to get through it, to get to the interim. And I know in the case of Biscayne Park, same thing happened. I talked to Mayor Halpern about their applicant pool. They just hired maybe 6 or 7 months ago. They received 20 applicants, whittled it down, and interviewed by way of a meeting 5, and then made their decision. And she said it took them a little over about a month and a half, 2 months to do that. So it's whatever the council has an appetite for in terms of a time frame. We're working with a short one, but that's how the clerk advertising that, in my experience, has worked. Just throwing that out there for.
And that's for the permanent position?
This is interim.
Really?
Yeah, that was interim. And then the interim was there, Madam Mayor, until, once the council then decided to put out an advertisement for full-time, and the interim served at the pleasure of the council until they went through the full-time process.
Wow.
And they took their time to get a full-time
And it was
manager.
not the same person?
No.
Who went through all that vetting? Wow.
Yeah.
That seemed like a lot.
I have so with the meetings, sorry, Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Councilwoman Wagger, since you spoke to them, would the meetings be regular council meetings, or would we be just calling special meetings so that we can move the process along?
In my experience, the El Portal was a special meeting. I think with Biscayne Park, it was, and when they got to their final applicants, it was a regular meeting where they made the decision.
Madam Mayor, if it's okay with you, a suggestion. I think that Mr. Travis offering to do this, I think that we should move forward in finding an interim through one of these processes. If it's putting out an application process through the clerk, and then we have our meetings. But if, before we meet the 30-day schedule, if we don't get a person before then maybe Mr. Travis serves until we find a permanent or a temporary interim. Any thoughts on that?
I guess you'll put it to vote and see what the council say. I think it's a lot. It's like a recruitment for a temporary person. And I've usually seen that for a temporary person, you just get a department director or someone like that and let them serve. I like to use someone who is not interested in the job because it don't give them no, unfair advantages. But it seemed like we're going through a full recruitment for a temporary person just to go through a full recruitment for a permanent person. That seems like a lot of work, but we could put it to vote and see what happens. That's just my 2 cents.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm hesitant with the idea of having an interim in order, previous to getting another interim. And again, I think if there's a possibility that the interim is someone that is on a test period for 6 months or so, I feel like it maybe should be somebody that is interested in the job, and that we are vetting. It's, yes, I mean, I guess the question is, what's the purpose of the interim? What are we looking for an interim manager for? Is it just to hold down the fort while we try to find someone else to take over forever?
Yes.
Or is it part of a probationary process, like the 90 days when you start a job or something like that, to find out if this is someone that we think will work on a more permanent basis? My personal inclination is, it should be someone we're looking for to hire on a more permanent basis, ideally. It
Then
doesn't
you
mean
would-
it's always going to work out, but that's my personal thoughts on this process and why we would have an interim.
Then you would have to go through the 2 recruitment things when basically you want to just keep the boat afloat, hold things down, somebody that understands how things currently happen and why you go through a regular recruitment, not make any, big changes because the new manager will come with their own vision of what they want to do. This person's just going to pretty much keep things afloat, ensure the residents that the city is being overseen, just a comfort level while you go through your recruitment process.
So
Go ahead.
would this be a good time to have a show of hands for how many are on the council would like to have an interim recruitment process, or would they rather just go with Mr. Kendall for a while the regular recruitment process goes on? Do we have an agreement? Are we at a point where we could agree on that?
Again, I'm sorry, but I think we're still not, I don't know, I think we still have to agree on the purpose of the interim,
Well-
and so that's why, if the interim's to hold down the fort, I don't know that I'm there yet. It's not 2 recruitment processes. If we're looking to ultimately find someone that we think could take on the village manager position, and the interim is the recruitment process for somebody that we see has the possibility of being the permanent village manager, then it's not really 2 recruitment processes, it's 1.
I've never seen that done.
And, obviously, we have an expedited timeline here, but that's, the thought is not to go through 2, but go through 1, and try to find an interim that is interested in being the permanent manager.
Okay, does somebody want to vote on something? Mr. Benton, first question is, what is the role of the interim person?
Well, the interim person's going to take over the day-to-day operation. They're going to sit in this chair right here, and they're going to run everything.
Right.
Now, I don't believe you would expect an interim person to be out there, blazing new ground for you. I mean, they're just basically, I'm always do everything nautical, and I don't know if this is going to mean anything to you, but they're going to be at the wheel making sure the boat stays between the channel markers, okay? They're not going to be they're not going to be out there taking on any new projects, and we've got a lot of projects pending out there, that I'm in the process of getting all lined up so the new person can come in and say, okay, this is where we left off, and this is where we're, what we need to do.
Which is where our time should be focused on getting a new
So-
person in here. Not spending a lot of time if we have a perfectly suitable person to, look over things. In the meantime, we should spend our time doing a proper recruitment.
Madam Mayor? Yeah, I feel like we are so early in this process. I understand that, Mr. Kendall obviously has been very highly spoken of and very appreciative of the interest in helping. And that's something that we may pursue. But at the same time, I think that we should at least advertise and afford others the opportunity. Mr. Benton said that Public Works is a good option. We don't know what some of the other either department heads or second in command departments might think and whether they're interested as well. And so I think, some minimal advertising process to see who's out there is something that's important for us to do. And to provide the opportunity for people to understand who are the candidates that are interested at least.
Madam Mayor, I can just say from internally, we only had,
They will come tell you.
yeah,
what they're-
everybody else took a step backward, and Travis didn't get the memo. He was standing out in front afterwards, so he's the only person that was interested in this because I asked around. As far as internal staff, so to save you all time, you know, I only had one person who was interested.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
If I can just offer in terms of guidance, the materials from the International City Managers Association, I read through it, and one of the big points they make, and I think you've made it as well, is the importance of having an interim who is not seeking the permanent job, for, I think, what are obvious reasons. Timing-wise, I think it's important that you get started on deciding what type of process you want for the permanent job. The issue of an interim, who's going to do an interim, is not really pressing today. It'll be pressing in 28 days or so, and there's plenty of opportunities to deal with it then. But I think that what's pressing is get started on what the permanent process is going to be, and we'll deal with the interim when we need to.
I agree. That's a good point.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I concur with that. I think that was what I had on my notes. Let's talk about the process and what we want, what we agree upon as the process going forward for the hiring of the next
hiring
manager.
person.
And Madam Clerk, to that point, if you were to put an advertisement out, your time frame for that, and I'm being hypothetical, would you be able to put out an ad tomorrow?
No.
Monday?
So today's Thursday.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Miami Herald.
Right.
I would have to at least give them 72 hours.
Okay.
I wouldn't limit it to the Miami Herald. You want to put it
That was my next
definitely not.
question. That was my next question.
Nobody
Miami Business Review?
Daily business could be 48 hours.
Okay.
And the associations.
Correct. Let's say
Right.
with at least 72 hour notice, just average.
Okay.
Madam Mayor? On page 8 of the manual, it talks about these organizations as well, National League of Cities, National Association of Counties, National Association of County Administrators, National Forum for Black Public Administrators, and International Hispanic Network, and the American Society of Public Administration. So all of those organizations will more than likely be good places for our ad to end up, as well as in media, because, and in this manual, they also were not really high on local newspapers and that expenditure as much as organizational broadcasting of the experience, of the position.
Through the chair, to Councilwoman Birch's point, Councilwoman Wagger, in that event, yes, I could start advertising or working with ICMA, FCCMA, some of the other manager associations, Miami-Dade County Managers Association, so forth and so on.
Yeah, if I may, Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
The other thing that I would just caution you on is that, and I've seen this in the past over the years, is I would strongly recommend that you hire somebody or bring somebody in that's in Florida.
Oh,
You know,
yes.
you're gonna get people that, you know, are snowbirds, so to speak, that want to get out. They don't like what's going on where they're living. Florida's a whole different animal when it comes to sunshine laws and rules and regulations that, so, you know, that I would strongly recommend that as you deliberate and look over these applications, because I found that people from other areas,
Yeah.
there's a much bigger learning curve.
And no one here has an appetite for a short list from some of those other communities
Well-
that he mentioned.
Can I ask a question? Mayor Harris, is anyone here received applications or interest from people? Because I have, because of the rapid turnover recently
Yeah.
in North Miami Beach.
Okay.
So I have received some information about that person, and I brought it with me tonight. But I don't know if anyone else has, or if that's something that you want to consider, or you just want to broadcast it first to the County Managers Association and things like
When
that.
we open it
That's
up
the
for
other question.
advertisement, you just put your person in there. Well, they'll apply.
They'll apply,
Themselves, right.
yes. Uh-huh.
Right, that's perfectly okay.
But there has been some turnover, as Mr. Benton mentioned it originally, of several management
Yeah,
positions.
there's been a lot, right. And that's why I was thinking that at least 3 communities recently hired city managers, that they probably already went through a vetting process and have a short list that we could look at. But at the same token, we do want to look at several people. We do. And so if we go to more than one of these municipalities, like Miami Beach, that's probably out of our league. That's a high dollar person, a big budget, all of that. But there's some municipalities like Key Biscayne is similar to us. Didn't you said not El Portel, Biscayne Park, you mentioned some other ones, so they all have short lists. But if we do advertise, we should have a short period of a week or 2, not a whole month. Yeah.
Madam Mayor? That was my next question. So the council, I think, needs to spend some time on talking about time frame here in terms of advertising, when we want the advertising to go, well, presumably we want the advertisement to go out immediately on all the
And
mechanisms
not
that
stay
make
open
sense.
long.
When do we want it to close the application process? I think there has to be some
Is there
discussion.
a rule here about how long you have to advertise?
No.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Okay.
basically,
the
what's
answer
the
is
window?
no. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd
there's
say
no-
Sorry, there's no rule. It's whatever that,
Okay.
it's at the whim of the council.
So, max 2 weeks. What do you guys, anybody? I was saying max 2 weeks.
Let me try that again. Just looking at the calendar, assuming that we get most of the advertisements out by Monday or so, Monday or Tuesday, and obviously there's a bunch of groups that will do e-blasts with emails as well. It won't cost much at all, just through the organizations. If we give it a 1-week period for applicants to respond and to take a look, I mean, that might take us into the week of May 17th. It might be nice to have a meeting of the council to figure out if we want to shortlist anybody who we want to bring in to interview by maybe the 19th, I would say, which is a Wednesday, and set a special meeting for the 21st, which is a Friday possibly, or Thursday, if that's better, the 20th, to go ahead and interview the applicants that we've so chosen, and then I think that leaves us another week in the month to finalize and move forwards. But
Well,
that's kind of
and-
how I'm looking at the timeline.
And we need to be more concerned with the process, the thoroughness, the transparency of it all, more than the quickness of it. This is a big decision that our residents are going to have to live with for a long time, so we need to be, very contemplative about this more than how fast we could get it done.
Well, I'm working off a June 1st deadline, so
Why?
that's,
Oh, we'll put in
I'm
somebody
speaking
active.
about the advertising for the interim.
Oh, I thought we were now talking about the recruitment process and getting people.
No, I'm speaking as to the interim.
Oh, yeah.
Through the chair, I think it's also helpful, I'm sure that there are generic job postings for city manager positions, but it would be helpful for staff, specifically for me, since I'll be advertising, if there are highly desirable qualifications that you'd like me to emphasize on that job posting for the interim position. That would be helpful since you're already here, under the sunshine, to make sure that I can put that tomorrow morning, per se, with at least these associations that Councilwoman Birch mentioned.
Madam Mayor, I think Mr. Village Manager Benton made a few suggestions in
Correct.
terms of qualities and qualifications that would help. I think that if we have that on the record, we can add those qualifications to
So
the
noted.
list of what we're looking for.
Yeah, we could look at some other communities.
Do we have a current job description for the village manager? I imagine we have job descriptions for all of our employees in the village.
Yeah.
Do you all, I'm sorry, excuse me, Madam Mayor? Do you all agree that we should say Florida experience preferred?
Yes.
Yes.
Dade
I
County
would-
experience, Dade County.
I would even say Miami-Dade County experience preferred, honestly. I don't want to be overly limiting, but at the same time to, some familiarity with the county, interaction with the county, I think is preferable.
I agree.
I would say Florida experience is required, and Miami-Dade County experience is preferable, in my opinion.
I concur with that.
But we could, if we expanded to Broward, I don't think we would really be hurting ourselves.
Well, all of these other cities get these big national recruitments, and they all hired people right in the back door. You know, doesn't really ever work out.
I like the idea of having someone that has coastal municipality experience, especially given, like Mr. Britton said, that we do have a seawall issue, we do have a septic to sewer problem. If we can find candidates that have addressed that issue in their own municipalities or have worked in public works, like he said, and can provide us some sort of work experience with dealing with those issues.
Thank you.
I know that this is kind of casual, but it's kind of hard to have a formal conversation, so.
Thank you. I would also like to, this sort of goes back to Mr. Benton's point, experience in terms of years. I agree with him wholeheartedly that you know, people are looking to get their feet wet, and we do have a myriad of projects that are complicated. They've been ongoing. I know that Mr. Benton's been negotiating several of them on our behalf for quite a while. So I would suggest to the council a minimum years of government, minimum years of experience.
Number, but do you have a
Exactly.
Yeah, like I would suggest 10, I mean, I don't want to be so arbitrary, but I feel like 10 years government experience is.
Executive or senior level, right.
Yeah.
And I would be kind of mindful of boxing it in with something like specific C-rise or something like that, because a manager manages processes, and if I could manage this, I could manage that. But I have to be able to manage various sources of fundings around these projects and actually just manage the contract part of it. The rest of it is department level type stuff. You know, and if you make your scope so narrow that the person have to know how to, you know, dig a ditch, you're just not going to get many applicants. Yeah.
I think having some coastal experience, there are tons of, this is Florida, if we're putting our scope to Florida and we're asking for someone to have some type of coastal experience, I think that benefits our community because we are coastal and we have a lot of homes that are on the water. It's a preference. People apply for jobs all the time. You have qualifications. If we find someone who's fantastic and they don't have it, what we're essentially creating is a wish list.
I like how you said it, because on a preference, you have.
Yeah, if we can create a wish list, I think that'd be great. If we could find somebody that can have all of it, awesome. If not, then we pick the best out of that.
I would agree that some kind of mention of a coastal or infrastructure experience, because I've mentioned to other people or other managers that we have this septic to sewer conversion project that we need to address. So that would, I think, be an important qualification.
Yeah, I think that should go on the preference area too. All of these things, if we could get all of this would be like, you know, beautiful. But, you know, most people are not going to have that, you know, very specific type experience like that, because these are basically general managers who the biggest thing they need to do is know how to budget, get money, you know, manage projects and stuff like that, you know, from 1,000 feet up. But I do agree that they should get some brownie points if they do have that. Yeah.
Madam Mayor, I think that all these specifics are great. I think what you'll find is once you start receiving the applications and reading and sifting through them, you'll see who has what under their belt, which is why I'm kind of stressing the qualifications on the year and the executive experience, because once you start looking at the resumes, you will see who has what.
Exactly.
And then we're able to pull from there, pardon me, what we'd like to pull.
I agree with that. And let's talk a little about okay, we know we're going to put out this advertisement for a week or two. Are we going to vet to a short list, or are we deciding to use an outside firm to vet? I know there's some people, like Key Biscayne did a hybrid of it, that they eliminated some of the people, the council did, and then they sent the remaining group to a firm. So, but do we want to go, or should we decide that depending on how many resumes we get?
Madam Mayor, so can I share a little bit of something? I made a couple calls, and I started out actually with Katie Sorensen at the Good Government Initiative, and she found out that Miami Beach was not so high on the consulting firm that they use, but she did recommend Colin Basinger. But Mr. Basinger said today, and Mr. Benton has given you a timeline that he, in your email, which actually extends out to September 20th. So he has enough business right now that he wouldn't be able to start this right away. That's why I'm glad to hear us talking about about advertising by ourselves. But there is a big expense here, but I will say that they were highly recommended by other cities that have used them. So
Mr. Benton,
those
on
above the management company that was just used by Miami Beach was not as highly ranked as Colin Basinger.
This, Mr. Benton, you may not know this, but what do they mean when they said needs analysis? They're assessing our needs?
Yes,
Okay, which is good, it helps us there.
kind of the discussion you just had about what you are looking for.
And this is 28,000 regardless of the number of applicants?
28,500. Now, they do all the work, okay? They do the advertising, they vet them out, they're going to bring them to you and say, here, this is our recommendation. And like I said, that's what these guys do. You know, they have applicant pools, they know the people that are, you know, in and out of work. So, you know, it's an option for you.
It's a good option.
Through the chair. Councilwoman Birch, the firm that you're speaking of, did you happen to get a cost for their services? I didn't hear you. I couldn't hear you.
That's the firm Mr. Benton
The same one? Okay,
reached
I
out
didn't hear you.
to. It's
Okay,
the
very
same
good.
one.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
So that 28 is total, no matter how many applicants we get?
28.5 is what he told me, yes.
Yeah,
Just put it in his proposal.
yeah, I saw it.
Through the chair, there's also the possibility, at least for the interim position, if you don't want to get to that point, to vet those applications, would be to coordinate a selection committee comprised of current managers. From my position, I know the first round, I think, once the position was advertised by Barbara Eastep, my predecessor, a group of municipal clerks met in a selection committee format, you know, sunshine and everything, and they shortlisted some of the first set of applications, and then it was presented to council, well, first to an interview group. It was comprised of Mr. Benton, another municipal clerk, but, I mean, my process was a little different, but at least if there is a fiscal impact, which there is, and you want to try a different route, that's also a possibility.
Yeah. Okay, where are we?
Madam Mayor? I am struggling with the idea of spending that much money. However, I have to look at when our managers had a 23-year yes. How much he saved us over these many years from doing this process. And if we're going to do it once and be really complete and really not skip over any aspects of the job of recruitment, then maybe we will retain longer and find the right fit the first time. So I'm struggling with that, and I know everybody else probably is too. But I'm almost sure that if we do this ourselves, and we're trying to be really careful, that there must be some trip-up points that I'm worried about.
And our time and staff time has a dollar value to it too, so, you know. So I'm saying you're worried about the money, you know, there's money going to be spent either way. So can we at least get a vote on, are we going to use our service? I'm trying to get the thing moving a little bit. I motion that we use the outside firm. Do I have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Second for discussion?
Yeah, I'll second for discussion, because I want to hear what other people think the pros and cons are.
Anybody have any a discussion around the pros and cons of using this firm?
I think, this is a tough one. Using the firm is one thing. Mr. Manager, the Dade County City Manager Association, do they conduct some of these services as well? Can they be helpful in this process? I'm just trying to compare the two. So in other words, let me be more clear. The Managers Association, do they help with recruiting and do they do any vetting?
No, they do, yes, they do all the vetting for you.
Right.
In other words, assuming Isabelle's going to do the advertising.
Right.
Okay, she's going to get, I'm picking a number, 100 applications.
Right.
Okay, we're going to take 100 applications and we're going to give it to them. They're going to go through, pare them all down. They'll form a committee of professional managers that will pare down those 100. If you tell them, bring me the top 3, or bring them the top 5 or the top 10, whatever that is, they'll bring back to you all, and then you all can then vet them out from there and have personal interviews or group
Right.
interviews or whatever you want to do after that.
And so, yes, so they work at the direction of us in terms of what applicants, how we'd want them to pare down the applicants, the number we'd want back. But they would do the footwork of vetting through applications. Just, I say I'm asking you that because I'm comparing it to potentially hiring a firm. to
Yeah, I
do
mean,
that as well.
that's what they're going to do. They're going to get, you know, you're going to give them what qualifications you're looking for. They're going to take those qualifications and compare them to the applicants that they receive. I know they will probably know quite a few of the applicants and so they'll know their skill set and abilities, so they'll be able to vet them out for you. You know, they're doing this on their off time, they're doing it for free, so, you know, they'll do a good job for you. They've done it for other cities, but they're not going to do all of the ancillary services like advertising and scheduling and stuff like that a firm would do.
Mr. Benton, do you think that there would be significantly more applicants coming from the search firm than the other route with the association? Or would it be significant, or would it be pretty much the same applicants, they're just coming in from different sources?
I would think that. I mean, obviously, I haven't been in the market in a long time, so I don't know. I can't really answer that.
Madam Mayor? I don't know if this is helpful or not. If you want me to share it, fine, but I did have a conversation with Merritt Stierheim about this. And Merritt Stierheim had quite a bit to say about the process, but he recommended the ICMA over everything because, he said, those managers do a great job. It is part of their volunteering experience through the organization. He said that it would probably yield somewhere between 80 and 100 resumes. That the association would quickly discard about half of those. He said you would get lots of qualified candidates, and as long as you were careful about defining the kind of manager you want, that you would make out just as well, in his opinion, as if you used a management company.
And that's free.
Sorry?
Because I was looking at the services they provide here, which is basically recruitment, because I've seen some of these little proposals before where they did psychological things and situational testing, all kind of, none of that is listed here. Oh, okay.
Through the chair, Mr. Attorney, but wouldn't those selection committees or any committee that is shortlisting on behalf of the council be subject to sunshine law, meaning minutes have to be taken, it's open to the public, so it'd have to be local, for sure, and we would have to notice those meetings as we would notice your meetings, and so forth and so on. Food for thought. Just
Okay, is there a motion about the ICM?
Well, you're going to use a DCCMA, which these, we're all ICMA managers. We all belong to the International City Managers Association.
Are your meetings Sunshine Law meetings?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Are your meetings governed in the sunshine?
No.
No.
Not our monthly meetings that we have. But as the clerk says, they vetting out applications, I guess Mr. Serafin would be the one to ask for that.
Generally, that is a sunshine meeting. There was a bill in the legislature this year to keep confidential the names and applications, but it didn't pass.
Okay, motion.
Or maybe it passed and wasn't signed. It's not law.
What is the motion? I'm not sure what the motion
Like you
is.
guys.
There's currently a motion and second on the floor, Madam Mayor.
I cannot hear it.
Unless you want to rescind, okay, if you want to rescind your motion, you can do that as well.
I want to kill that motion.
Okay?
Okay.
So noted.
Would
Seems
you
like we're going a different
reread the
direction
motion,
here.
please?
It was a motion to engage an outside firm for the recruitment of interim and permanent manager.
Right, I want to rescind that motion.
Okay, so noted.
Mayor, perhaps it's time, and I don't know what the appetite of the council is, but maybe it's time to take a vote on DCCMA versus the firm.
Right.
Yeah, I can't hear. I'm
Yes,
sorry,
that's
guys,
why
I
was
can't
trying to get a
hear.
motion for the DCMA. Okay.
I think I'm still a little bit confused as to where we're moving it with the motion, in the sense of, are we talking about interim? Because I think, are there two processes we're looking at, or is there one process? If we're looking at just the interim, and I think we're talking about the interim, if we're all on the same page.
I don't think so. We're talking, no, I don't think so.
So we're not on the same page. That's exactly why I'm questioning. Because, again, I'm focused on, first, we can go ahead and look for interim, because I think that's the more immediate need. You're talking about a process.
Talking about the recruitment process.
You're talking about a process that we will not have any chance of completing by June 1st.
Yeah, but we're still going to have to define the process. We could complete it by June 1st.
Understood. I just wanted to understand which process we're talking about right now, because we do have to then talk about an interim process instead. My own feelings are that I would be very much interested in doing our advertising, not paying, doing our advertising, seeing what candidates we have out of our own internal processes for the interim, with obviously the papers, the organizations, trying to get, on the timeline that I mentioned, some applications in for the interim process, and then, to see where we would go forwards from there. And, there may be an interim manager, and we may decide that that's enough of our recruitment process if we're happen to be pleased with what's come in on the applications. But I think in order of what needs to happen, I think we need to get an interim in first. And so I'm focused on that aspect first.
Through the mayor, I see where you're going, Mr. Manberg. I wasn't following, it's hard for me to hear, and I apologize to everybody, but I couldn't hear. Yeah, as far as the process is concerned, I think I concur with you on the interim piece.
Is there a motion?
Yeah, I would move that we advertise through our own sources, through the various outlets that we talked about with the media, through the organizations we've identified, for an interim manager. We've mentioned some basic qualifications that we would like. We had a requirement that we had identified as, I believe was a minimum of 10 years government experience was a requirement. If I'm mistaken, obviously please amend the motion. I believe we had talked about Florida experience was a requirement. I think we had talked about Miami-Dade County as a preference on the eligibility for the position. And I think what I was proposing is that we have the application period closed as of Monday, May 17th, so that we can review all of the applications that have come in on the interim manager basis.
Well, I would like for us to look at other job descriptions, not just right up here, randomly put together a job description, that we need to look at some that already exist and create the job description, not just up here. But I don't have, and I also do have a problem with doing a recruitment for an interim person. But I'm more concerned with the job description.
For the interim? Sorry, through the chair.
Yeah.
But
I
then
think
that-
it should be the same job description, because that person might then become your manager who doesn't meet the requirements of what you ultimately recruit for.
Madam Mayor, there's an existing job description that is longer and more detailed than the one in the charter. Is that correct, Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Okay.
It is, I have
So-
that?
Excuse me?
Do I have that?
I'm sorry?
Do I have that job description?
No.
I'm trying to figure out, is that part of the paper you gave us? Oh, okay, all right, okay.
Madam Mayor?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Turner.
Sorry, please.
I always yield to the council.
No, I yield to you.
I'm just trying to be clear. Is the suggestion or the motion that we launch into a couple of 3-week process to hire an interim who could end up to be the permanent? Is that your concept?
So whether that person ends up as being the permanent or not, I guess I'm not as concerned. I think we can always make a decision if the person is qualified to be permanent, and in working with that person, we can always figure that out. I think there's probably no better way to vet somebody than actually working with them for a period of time. But the motion is to focus on an interim.
Because my thought is you're likely going to get a different pool of applicants when you're advertising for a full, a permanent manager than when you're advertising for an interim. The first question is going to be interim for how long, and we don't have an answer to that.
Well,
It's not uncommon to have an unclear time frame on an interim manager. That's not uncommon. That's not uncommon. And the council could come up with a time frame for it, but I just want to encourage and let the council know that is not an uncommon occurrence.
I guess my question
never
was,
seen
is it the intent of the council tonight to make a decision on starting a process for the permanent position? Or is that something we're going to wait until after we hire an interim?
No, we're going to do both tonight,
Okay.
because we have to get the permanent
Question?
process started. I don't know why we're wasting time on this recruiting for a temporary person. If you just get started with the regular recruitment, it may only be a month or so after he's gone. I just never have seen that before. I'm not saying it has never happened. I'm saying I've never seen it. But
Do we have a motion on the floor, though?
Madam
do,
Mayor,
right.
is the intention to run parallel processes? Or are you saying not to recruit at all for an interim?
I say that if we have a person that we could appoint to replace him temporarily, between the next 30 days to 60 days, we could have a permanent city manager there with the time and energy we putting on finding a temporary person. We could have a permanent person sitting here in maybe 2 months or so. I just don't understand it.
So you're saying, Mr. Kendall, or you said?
Yeah, and I like the fact that he doesn't want the job. I mean, that was the selling point, by the way.
Okay, and so,
Crazy, man.
okay, let's get some consensus here. How many people would be in favor of just, thank you, of just going with the internal offer of Mr. Kendall versus having this Vice Mayor Marenberg's idea of having a short list of interim city managers?
Okay, he put a motion.
We need to figure out who's for what here.
Well, we need a motion and a vote.
So is there not a
Okay.
current motion?
I think there's a motion I have currently pending.
Right, he was formulating, it was a motion in progress.
It was a lot.
But, again, I think it's a bit rash of us to make a decision, just appoint, I think it's literally the first person that's come to express interest and not to advertise the position, not even internally within our own village. And I understand that Mr. Benton said no one else is interested, but people may change their mind as they think about it. It takes some thought. And to see we haven't even posted the job description and what we're looking for. So I think it's a bit abrupt to just move to appoint somebody at our very first meeting, not having even had any other applicants really to talk about. I'm just surprised. We have until June 1st to get an interim manager, and by June 1st, maybe that decision is, that we're very grateful to Mr. Kendall for offering, and I think that offer would still be around as of June 1st. I don't know that it was, you decide tonight or not. I think he's offering out of the goodness of helping the community, and I appreciate that. But he's also giving us the blessing of some time to do a little bit of research and get some applicants.
Okay, so that's a motion, and
So the motion, as I had expressed it before, was to advertise through internal processes, through the media outlets that we've discussed, through the organizations, for an interim manager. If someone wants to amend that and say a permanent manager at the same time in parallel, I don't mind that, but my motion's on the interim manager piece. On the timeline that I set forth, that by Monday, May 17th, we have received all the applications, so that we can go ahead and review it and then set additional timelines after that.
Madam Mayor?
Second.
Yeah.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Aye.
Yes, I said aye.
Aye, what, in favor?
Yes.
Okay,
Aye.
the motion passes. Okay, so that was handling the interim person. And then now we're going to go out and also advertise for a permanent person through the IDD and whatever. What is it?
Oh, no, you're going to advertise through all of the different outlets. You're going to do ICMA, you're going to do DCCMA, FCCMA.
But are they running concurrent? One saying interim and one saying permanent?
I think that's what you all just voted for.
Madam Mayor? May I?
Yes.
I want to be clear that what we just did was we voted on the ability to look for an interim, which will give us the time, especially given this timeline that we were given by this recruitment company or this recruitment firm, that this will give us the time that we need to find a permanent village manager. And so there would be no rush in figuring out all of the minor details that we are moving forward, that we are looking for an interim manager. And in the process of looking for an interim manager, we are going to set processes in place for picking a permanent manager.
Okay. I heard you.
Is that?
I heard it
just wanna be
3, 4
clear, Dan.
times, so I know what you're saying.
No, I want to be clear that that's what Dan was saying, because that was his motion.
Yes, Councilwoman St. Fleur, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I'm like, okay.
Just based on that time frame, coming back by May 20th, are we then going to hold, as was discussed previously, a special meeting on May 20th? Because, okay, so they come back on the 17th, are we still going to be holding a special meeting on May 20th?
Yes.
Okay. Just so.
And then when are we advertising for the permanent person? That's the end game here. I think. I'm not sure of the game.
Yeah,
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I think that's right. I mean, I think the interim process is the critical process here, and I think that that'll give us time to work on job description and tweak things, agree on a job description together, and figure out whether we're going with the management company for the actual permanent position, or if we're going to just continue to advertise internally as we had for the interim. But that gives us time to think through that calmly and to put the bells and whistles on the job description, what we're looking for ideally.
Okay. All right, I think we,
Does that leave anything else to discuss?
I don't think so.
There is a form in the manual, in the ICMA manual, that we should look at and perhaps do the homework of what we each think about that. It's a description of our village.
Yes.
It walks us through the idea of describing who you are. And as we've decided what we want in a manager, also us reviewing the job description that the manager's going to provide us, because I don't have the full one. And the other thing, these are things that could come up at the May 18th agenda, so that we could discuss those then as a preliminary to a May 20th meeting.
Okay.
Agreed?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so it seemed like here, what we've handled is how we're going to, the process for the interim, and then we'll, in that time, we will be cleaning up the job description of what we really want to go out for. And so I think, do we have any other business tonight?
I would move to adjourn.
One quick question, Madam Mayor. When's your last meeting, Mr. Benton? What's the date of your last meeting?
The second meeting in May.
Sounds like it's going to be the special meeting in May.
May
May
18th is the second May meeting. May 20th is the
Then the May
special
20th.
meeting.
That's what I'm saying. That sounds like May 20th is going to be his last
Oh,
meeting
good. You're here. Good.
in the village.
Okay.
But regular meeting is May 18th.
That's correct.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Travis, is P and Z on the 20th?
It's the fourth Thursday.
The fourth Thursday, okay.
27.
Okay, good. Maybe we
Mayor?
can do this in a better room.
Madam Mayor,
there a motion?
if I just might address the clerk for a second. I
Yeah, very
know
informal.
that we've really tried, and IT that's here, I know we've really tried about the sound in this room, but it is very difficult to hear in a sustained, easy way. So I suggest if we can possibly, at the next meeting, maybe it's okay with the CDC that we would take down the barriers or something? Or some sort of downgrade of our internal protections?
Through the chair,
Help it?
Councilwoman Birch, if I may, for me, the biggest difficulty is the AC. So as you see, when we turn it off, we can all hear each other. We've brought in AV professionals to, this is their first meeting in the 9900 to help me troubleshoot other, like, interference issues and all of that, live stream issues, so they're taking notes. But as far as the meeting being audible for everyone, I think we can all agree that that AC system is like an airplane taking off. It's really loud, and as you see, it's either we hear each other or we're going to be high. Like, I mean,
To Council Lady Birch's comment, we can't move back to Village Hall?
Sure you can.
that's a conversation actually I wanted to bring
With the
forward to the
director.
council to discuss. Where would you like your chamber councils to be, considering we're
Not
slowly
never.
getting out of COVID, but also you'll be very close for comfort, considering that we're
It's too close
just,
for my comfort.
Then are we able to go back to
and
the
to accommodate the
community?
public as well.
What about the community center? Can we use that again?
Madam Mayor, for me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so every time we have a meeting over there, we lose $800 in gymnastics revenue. Okay, when we have a meeting in there. And that's basically, that's the only place we can do gymnastics because it's big enough to set up and has a tall enough roof. So I believe on your tours that I took you on, you see how much it takes a full day to take all that stuff down. So the gymnastics, you lose 2 days. 1 day for taking down and setting up, and 1 day for actually having the meeting.
Madam Mayor?
And I was also,
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
I didn't think it was that bad.
Well, I was just going to suggest that we do have an option B over at Village Hall, and that is to have use the lobby area and the audio-visual that we were using before. And people can sit outside, they can hear, they can see. And if we do that for a while
27th
until
PNC.
the epidemic, can you hear? sorry. If we do that for a while, that might serve, because the public can be in chairs 6 feet apart in the lobby, and be inside 6 feet apart in the inside. That might work. We could try it, because to be able to hear is so important.
I agree.
And Madam Mayor, if I may?
Oh, yes, okay, call it.
Well, I just wanted to let you all know, right now, as we speak, there's a code enforcement board meeting in Village Hall, in the council chambers, operating exactly as Councilwoman Birch described. They spread out. They have, I think, 3 on the dais, and I think that's a 7-person board, and 4 in the audience, all spread out so that they're not on top of each other. And the public and the accused violators wait out in the hall, watch it on TV, come in one at a time as their cases are called, where as necessary. So it is doable in Village Hall.
Except 2 of you are going to have to sit in the audience in this scenario.
Yeah, I don't think that's ideal. I don't think that that's an ideal situation. If I may, I think, and I'm just going to put a shot in the dark on this one, but we also have the MTC here, and I don't know what their sound is like. But on evenings where if there's not something there, I don't know if anybody's talked to the theater to see if that's a viable option or not, but there's, I assume, plenty of seating. We wouldn't be losing revenues for gymnastics, even if there's some kind of nominal cost to the theater on those nights when it's not being used, if it saves us the other hassle. So I would just think that that might be an option to consider, because we have...
Can they just send these through a speaker, like put a speaker up?
I can talk to AV Dwight.
Because I like the space here.
Do we have any sound options other than what we have? Because we need air conditioning, because we get more people in here as the summer wears on. It's going to be very hot in here. Do we have options here somehow that we could bring in more speakers?
Dwight, could you approach the microphone, please?
Excuse me. You guys on YouTube and there and where I'm
Before you even start, Madam Mayor, was the suggestion that we use the theater? I couldn't hear.
Yes.
Is that a viable option?
I would have to check through the attorney if that's even viable from a Sunshine, because it's a private entity.
If it's open to the public, then I think it's a viable option if we can cut a deal.
And accessible, ADA accessible.
That I don't know.
Giselle's here. Is there a cost to us? What would you?
Can we ask Giselle to step up to the microphone if she's willing, since we have a representative here?
Sorry, you got through.
Good evening. I would be happy to donate the theater in the spirit of community to the council if those dates are available. So if somebody can get me the dates, and I will make sure that our tech people set up whatever you need. You just get us the specifications.
That's
Thank
That's
you.
very gracious of you. Thank you. Hopefully it'll build some more awareness of the theater for the community.
Let's also check out the speaker. I'm sorry, Giselle. Thank you. That's very generous of you. I wanted to ask you about the speaker situation.
No
too.
worries. What we did tonight was just, we kind of hybridized what you guys have here in the,
Take that. Can you hear
no,
me?
sorry. What we did tonight was we tried to kind of hybridize what you guys have here, rather than bring in all of our gear, kind of like what we did at the other places. What we could do in this situation, and it might help, would be put a couple of monitors here. They would basically be putting the audio back to you guys to listen. Because as we have it now, the speakers are placed far beyond you, so you don't hear the sound except for what echoes back off of that. With the barriers, it kind of blocks you being able to hear yourselves. So if we put monitors in front of you, you could actually have a little bit of sound going out to you. And they wouldn't have to be, I'm just trying to also keep the aesthetic to where you're not having a lot of gear.
Yeah,
setting
I
up.
really didn't have many problems hearing, but yeah, that's good.
But yeah, we could do that. I mean, we went, these are the microphones that are actually here that belong to the village. Their pickup isn't quite as well. You can hear quite a bit of popping, but that's something that we could talk about after.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
I still like to leave the theater option on the table also, but I don't really want to be up on the auditorium, on the stage. Look at me.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
while they figure out how to work this system, if the theater's available, can we agree that we will meet, and our next meeting will be at the theater, if that date is available?
Because you know this is movable.
Give me just a moment.
Is it the will of the council that staff work with the theater to see if the dates are available, if the facilities can accommodate us, et cetera, and that if possible, it's the will of the council to do it there?
If we need a motion for that, I would move that we speak with the theater to try to coordinate. I think the next regular council meeting is May 18th, which is Tuesday, and there's also a special meeting that is being proposed for Thursday, May 20th. So if either or both of those dates would work, but maybe first focus on the 18th to see if the theater would permit that.
Yes, I would say that would be the will of the council. If anyone objects.
I object.
Is there a second to Mr. Marenberg's motion?
I second his motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Even though I'm out of turn, CDC guidelines would allow people to sit in here.
You out of turn.
I know, but you could be sitting in here too. You people.
I like
back
this building. It's open.
This whole place, you got 6 feet between all of you. I mean,
I agree,
I
Dennis.
think it's kind of crazy the way they all this time, but
Yeah.
go on. I won't be crazy.
Always out of order.
Madam Mayor, it works better if you throw the gavel at him.
Yes. Well,
Madam Mayor, may I before you gavel? So,
I want to throw her crystal.
as I'm sure you all have seen, Governor DeSantis has issued an executive order that's basically said COVID's over.
Yes.
I kind of disagree with that. I have
too.
left the buildings the way they are, so to speak, where we have limited access because of our employees. The infection rate is still over 5%. There's still over 1,000 people a day coming down with COVID. And so unless you all have a problem with that, I'm going to keep ops normal the way we are right now. I would like to see this infection rate, significantly below 5% for the sake of our employees and the general public that's coming in and doing business with us.
And do you have authority over that if the county mayor declares something? This is a question. I don't know the answer. If the county mayor says that everybody must open up per DeSantis, do you have?
The county's announced position is the same.
Oh, good,
That
good. I
we
like
have
that.
authority over our facilities.
Okay.
The governor's order does not preclude that. I was
Oh.
on a Zoom meeting with most of the city attorneys of Miami-Dade County
Okay.
yesterday, seems like a lot longer. And that's the general consensus, and the county and Broward County have both
Okay,
announced
good.
that they're going to continue in their facilities,
Yeah.
at least for the time being.
I'm going to continue in my life.
Good idea.
All right, thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second. Oh, you can say something? Okay, meeting adjourned. Okay.